listening to Beyond Boss Fights, gaming, technology, movies, and more.
Well, we got the music to work. I forgot to flip the little scene transition back, but whatever.
Oh.
It's it's just video. Who cares about the video part?
Nobody does video.
No, video doesn't.
Says the YouTuber.
There's like 35 views on every single one of my podcasts, and probably most of them are listen to the music and what is this? Shut it off. I was looking for REM. Where is it? Hey, this is Beyond Boss Fights. I am Brax Wolf, and with me, as always, straight out of Natty, is DJ Pimp Daddy.
Woot woot. How's it going?
Hey, we are back in business once again. I get to say it every time because we take a really long break every time.
We show up when we feel like it.
We're constantly on the reunion tour.
We heard you were having a bad year, so we came back to heal.
That's why we're here, and we're not going to talk about anything controversial or otherwise upsetting, because that's just not who we are anyway. So I think we were talking about this in our pre-show for VIPs only, and this is the first time that we are recording with my brand new PC, so we should not have any music stutters. Any errors that come out of this recording are purely my fault and not something I can blame on technology. Well, I'm still using a wireless card, so I guess I could blame that if something goes really bad.
But you've burned in the computer proper, so
I burned it in. Yeah, one of the first things I did, the funny thing here is one of the first things I did when I started moving things over to my new computer was look up how to easily migrate your OBS settings, because I didn't want to have to go through and set all this stuff up again. And it actually works pretty well. You know, it's a pretty straightforward process of copying over your what'd you call it, template, and I guess making sure that all of your media was still in place. I had to, all this fancy stuff that I do with our names and stuff that had to be there. Those files had to be there. And the funny thing was when I was looking through them on the old system, they were all over the place. They weren't even in one folder. They were like, I don't know how I did it before. I don't know what my organization system was, but they weren't together at all. So I had to go kind of hunt them down and then put them into the same folder this time. So hopefully if I ever need to look for them, they're all in the same place. But let's not bore them with technical details. What you been doing?
Just surviving and thriving, I guess. I'm essential, so I've been working. And other than that, like, I feel like I'm legitimately stuck in a Westworld loop where you wake up every day and you've been, like, brought back to life. And just something, it's like the uncanny valley is always there. Like, something's wrong.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm just playing some games, trying to stay sane. That's all you can do, right?
Yeah, I am also essential, I guess. Actually, I'm not really essential, but I can work from home, so it's one or the other, I think. I don't think you have to do both. It's just like, you're not really essential, but you can work from home, so you can keep working, so that's nice.
Yeah. I work in a position where I could go into the data center to fix things as needed, but yeah, I work 100% from home for the most part. So. Right,
they're actually talking now about. Well, we'll get into this a little bit later when we do our updates. Actually, we're probably almost there. Don't have any acknowledgments and apologies. I had to slow down to say that correctly this time.
Well, now I have an apology to give. Since we insulted our YouTube fans, I'd like to apologize for people watching the video. If we don't apologize for something, who are we really?
That's true. We always should be sorry about something. We're sorry people. Okay, so you mentioned games. What have you been playing?
Oh, my God. Okay, so first off, despite my best efforts to not play this game, my kids finally set up a profile, and I started playing the Animal Crossing New Horizon. And they are like light years ahead of me. I finally upgraded my house, and I think that they're working on like a neighborhood expansion, and Like every single thing that's in the museum was donated by them and not me, you know. So it's just like the they're running around with like, you know, laser technology, and I'm running around hitting stuff with sticks, right? So it's it's fun, he says with air quotes.
So let me ask you. I am only familiar with, excuse me, the at this point very old Wii version of Animal Crossing. I think it was City Folk
Mhm.
because my kids were younger and they were playing that at the time. But with that, I think you could have somebody come to your world. But I don't know that you could share stuff while they were there. I don't really remember that aspect of it.
Yeah, so we're playing on the same Switch, on the same cartridge, so we're all on the same exact island. But we can't, obviously, since we're on the same device, we can't be there at the same time.
Gotcha. Okay.
But my sons constantly leave junk in my mailbox because they feel bad for me. and and I just keep going around digging holes in yards and not filling them back in, right?
That,
Just to be a jerk.
well,
Just holes everywhere.
speaking of which, we actually had to discipline my oldest son back in the old Animal Crossing days because one of his friends shared his island code with him or whatever, his neighborhood code. And when the kid wasn't there, he went in and he chopped down every single tree in the entire neighborhood. So the kid had no way to make money and nothing to plant. It was such a mean thing to do. Kids are mean, man. The kids are mean.
The good old griefing.
That's all it was. He was just, I mean, he wasn't doing it to be mean. He was just doing it to, well, I guess in some ways it kind of was, but
Yeah.
just messing with him.
That's
But
kind of funny.
it is very funny now. At the time, we were trying to, impress upon him, this is not how you treat your friends.
Yeah, so I play it because they really enjoy the game and they get a kick out of watching me fumble through it, but it's not my game. And I see a ton of people on my Twitter feed just gush about it all the time, so I at least gave it a try. But
Yeah,
I don't prefer it, but
it's
I
another
could-
one of those that I always I kind of throw that into the like the Pokemon category. Things that kind of came after I was a kid. I was already kind of grown up, and so I still associate that with like a kid's game, even though I know a lot of adults play it and enjoy it.
Mhm.
So it's just one of those things that I've never really had the desire to get into either.
Yeah. So Origin had a thing for like 5 weeks. Every week they would give away a free game on Origin, and every week I logged in with my account and both of my son's accounts, and I downloaded the free game of the week just because it's a free game. And there were like big games too. Like they got Grand Theft Auto 5 and Borderlands 1 and 2, right? And one week they gave away Ark Survival, and I downloaded that and I put it. I remember playing this multiplayer and loving it, but the last time I played it, it was still almost like a beta-ish, so it had bugs and it wasn't optimized very well. Oh my lord, that game is huge. It's like 120 gigabytes to download it. It's just a massive game. You're just like, why is the game this big? And then I finally got it installed on 3 computers in our house, and I'm like, let's all play multiplayer. It's going to be great. We're all going to jump in and chase each other with sticks and get killed by dinosaurs, right? And we're playing it on Origin. The multiplayer that was built into the game was built completely using Steam Community. So it doesn't work in Origin. And I'm like, why would they? Why? It's just like,
What?
it was a huge kick to the teeth. You're just like, what? I swear to Lord, if you open up the multiplayer settings, it says invite a friend. It says paste in Steam ID. You're like,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, it's just like complete fail on
That's horrible.
EA's fault. But free game, whatever. So I showed my kids how to play it single player. Then they ended up like hating it single player. So it was a complete waste of time. So, and it's just I don't know why a game needs to be that huge. It is huge. And it's not even like a MMO, right?
Yeah,
You know?
right. I actually grabbed that one too, and I haven't installed it. I just grabbed it.
Yeah. So then I, out of boredom, I started playing Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition, the revised one.
Hmm.
And for the first time ever, I actually beat Baldur's Gate. Like,
All right.
legit beat it. So I could check that one off the list. And then on a whim, one of my Canadian Twitter people I follow started gushing about Zamboni Simulator 2019. So I'm like, well, I'm a sucker for a sim game, Brax. So
Okay, I'm sighing.
it is,
Okay,
it's amazing.
listen. You can't tell me this game's amazing.
It's amazing.
It's not even exciting watching a real Zamboni. All they do is drive around circles on the ice.
It is so not the game you think it is. I mean, you legitimately just drive it around and in circles on the ice, right? And there's like 6 controls, like forward, backward, turn, stop, get on, and get off the Zamboni, right? And I don't want to spoil it, other than the monotony of driving the Zamboni is just the backdrop of an excellent story, if that makes sense.
Okay.
The real game is the hopelessness and the storytelling. It's just like, it's complete nihilist story. Like, if you're into just like games that just like are all about that, then definitely download and play this one. It is not what you think it is. Even like, I swear, if you just watched a video of someone playing it with no audio on, you'd be like, this is the dumbest game ever. But it's the story that's being
What, does he
told.
have like an internal monologue going on or
Yeah.
something? Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I thought it was just like, you did it once and you finished it, and then when you get done driving the first level, it says, you finished, congratulations, you finished. And then I thought that would be the end of a 10-minute game. And then suddenly, like, you get an evaluation form for like your employee performance form. Like, it's all about like how bad you did perform and like how you need to like be a better team player. And it's just like, I'm just like, oh. And then it's just like, suddenly it's like chapter 2. And then suddenly you're back on the ice. And you're just like, oh my God, it keeps going. This is the best game ever. It's free. Download it, play it.
So it's like real life simulator then.
Oh yeah. If you ever feel bad about your job, download this.
I can only work within the system, the parameters of the system I've been given. You got to be a better team player, sir.
Yes, everyone needs to go download and try Zamboni Simulator 2019. It's you'll play it for an hour and then you just be like, okay, I'm gonna go blow my brains out now.
Well, that's exactly what we need in these trying times. So thank you for that recommendation.
Exactly. Oh yeah, and lastly, I didn't put it on the doc, but ever since I saw the trailer for that Fallout TV show.
Oh yeah.
Playing Fallout.
Actually, I am adding that right now.
Is it Please Stand By? Was it? I think that's what it was called. The trailer was called
Fallout series.
Yeah, so I've been playing Fallout 4 again on PS4, and that's been my couch game. And
what a great game!
It's driving my kids crazy because they're like, "Is that all you're gonna play now?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And at this point, I could just own the game, but at the same time, I'm legitimately trying to play through a build and a play type that I've never ever tried. Like, I'm doing like melee, chems, like I'm doing most of the like faction stuff, but at the same time I have no intention on not killing all 4 of them. I'm so over everybody's problems. But yeah, I'm looking for all those weird quests that I always miss, right? I'm not doing like a stealth sniper build,
Right.
I didn't put
like
one single point into that, so
yeah.
now I run up to people and just decapitate him in like one swing of a sword, right?
I did put Fallout 76 on my wish list for Steam. I'm not going to buy it at full price, but
Yeah.
at some point I will pick it up after I've run through my everything else I need to finish.
So, speaking of stuff you need to finish, I see 2 endless MMOs on your list here.
Yeah. Well, one of them's partly professional, so I kind of have to play Elder Scrolls Online. But yeah, the Greymoor came out. I think last time we podcasted, I was looking forward to this update. It's part of Skyrim. It's still not the whole part of Skyrim that is in the Elder Scrolls V, but it does include Solitude and some other iconic locations like Blackreach, the Blackreach Caverns, which they've expanded to be kind of a mini zone on its own. It's even bigger than it is in Skyrim. So it's an enjoyable DLC. I wrote about this on Massively OP, and it's one of those things where I said if you like ESO, you're going to like the update, but don't expect anything completely mind-blowing from it. You know, it's kind of, they've fallen into kind of this pattern where they do the same type of thing every major chapter release. They just name it something different. Mm-hmm. Like in the original game, there were these dark anchors they're kind of semi-random events where they would occur, you know, on the map, and a bunch of bad guys would drop out, and everybody in the map would have to swarm there and fight the bad guys, and then they get a big reward. Well, they've done the same thing in every chapter release they've done, but they've called it something a little bit different. Like in Somerset, it was geysers, and in Elsewhere, it was actually the big dragon fights that occur because a dragon will spawn somewhere on the map. And in this one, it's Harrow Storms. Okay. So it's like a storm type event. Magic like storms.
Guild Wars 2 boss fights.
Yeah, it is. Like it is kind of like that, you know. But
it's like everybody jump in and then kill this thing and then move on, right?
They've got a really good formula going that people like, so they just kind of continue to use that formula. Now, the one thing that is different is they came up with a new system called Antiquities, and that's the one where you go and explore different areas on the map to dig up artifacts. And the thing that surprised me about this, which is kind of cool, is that once you dig up an artifact, it says, okay, we're sending this back to the Mages Guild for further study. And then as soon as that happens, it like pretends to do a 24-hour cycle or something, or a 12-hour cycle, and you get a little piece of lore back about the item that you've discovered. And it's all new stuff. It kind of ties into what they had before, but they're kind of writing lore along the way for Elder Scrolls series. And so it's fun to find like a medal that was worn by a certain type of Aldmeri soldier back in, you know, it's pretty interesting stuff to kind of add to the lore of the game. So that's, yeah, and it's completely separate from all the combat stuff. So if you just want to chill out sometime and go dig up some antiques and find out some more lore about Elder Scrolls, that's something that you can do. So I give them a lot of credit for doing something different, because at least it's not go kill, you know, X number of monsters here.
So you're making fun of me playing Zamboni Simulator, but you're going around digging up antiques.
Hey, Indiana Jones dug up antiques, man.
It belongs in a museum.
If you want to hassle Harrison Ford, that's your problem. So that was obviously, I've been doing that. I've pretty much completed the main story on that now. World of Warships has been the one I've sunk a lot of time into. Really sunk a lot of time into. It's really addicting progressing through these tech trees, and it's kind of funny because when you start off on a tech tree for a type of boat for a nation, ship, I guess, for a nation, they're not very expensive to buy, right? The hard part in the tiers, 4, 5, and 6 are basically you have to get enough ship XP in the previous ship experience points to research the next one in the line, and that's where the grind is. Well, when you get up into the upper levels, especially if you have like a premium account, I bought some premium when it was on sale for Christmas. You get the research done, and you still don't have enough credits to buy the boat because it's kind of flipped. At that point, the boats are so expensive that you have to grind for the credits, and the experience comes a little bit more easily. And also, there's the higher up you get, the more different types of upgrades you can put on your boat, and those get more expensive. Not only do you get more of them with the tier 8, but they get more expensive. Each one that you add on is like another 1,000,000 credits or something. So I'm grinding multiple lines because I thought that would be a more efficient way to do it, because each day you get like a daily XP boost for your first win. So I figured, well, if I do this boat and get the 50% boost, and then I do this boat and get the 50% boost, if I keep doing that, then I'm going to get more XP along the way, and it'll go faster. It's going to take longer to get to tier 10, but once I get there, I'm going to start getting there on everything, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm actually at the point where I have 2 ships researched that I can't afford to buy with credits. So it's working kind of, but what I didn't anticipate was that credit grind. So
you can't take it all, Brax.
I know I can't ever outthink the game. I'm not a theory crafter, as they say. But that's been a lot of fun. Probably one thing I did do, though, was I was able to purchase a tier 10 premium ship with in-game currency that I'd earned from playing. Okay. So even before I grinded one of the lines all the way up to 10, I have 2 9s. I don't have a 10 yet. I was able to use the in-game that's called coal, something you earn in-game for playing and doing objectives and stuff, to buy a big, huge battleship called the Thunderer. And it's a fun one to play. It's got really big guns. I'm not as good with that boat as a lot of the tier 10 players are, and sometimes I hear about it from my teammates, but for the most part, everything's gone pretty well with that too.
Brax, aka the anchor of the team.
I tell you what, man, this is the only PvP game I play, and people tell me this is a pretty tame one, but people get testy. Anytime you're playing other players, people get testy. It's a competition. So, and really, the last thing that I've been spending a lot of time on is Assassin's Creed Odyssey. It went on sale when they announced the new one. I don't remember what it's called. It starts with a V, Valhalla or something. It's going to be
playing it on PC.
Playing it on PC, right? Okay. So it went on sale for half price, and I grabbed it. I love this game. And for Assassin's Creed, I used to buy, I played the first one a long time ago. I played the second one. I really liked the second one. I played Brotherhood, and then I played 3, and then I kind of fell off the boat. At that point, it was like, yeah, this is starting to feel pretty repetitive. And that's back when they were coming out with one every single year. So it really was kind of repetitive. It was like Madden, right? It's another Assassin's Creed game with pretty much the same stuff. I can't keep them straight. So I kind of fell off at that point, and I haven't played one. I think I started to play Black Flag, and I didn't get very far. So when I got this one, my expectations weren't super high, but it is a very, very solid game. It's beautiful. It's set in ancient Greece. It's during the Peloponnesian Wars. So Athens and Sparta are at war. And it's that beautiful Grecian island, tropical, and they've also mixed in obviously all the things that are ruins there now were thriving at that time. So you get to see their interpretation of what this ancient world looked like, and the characters are great. The story, from what I can tell, is pretty good. And somebody on Twitter said it probably better than I would have thought to. They said, every time I think I've uncovered every system in this game, they throw something else at me. And it is kind of that way. I mean, I was like sitting there at level 20, and all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I can do these missions. I can participate in the war. I can kill other mercenaries and up my rank there. And then they go, oh, by the way, here's a list of cultists you can go kill, and you have to find clues to do that. And the thing I really like about it is it's very open world. It's everything that I wanted the Star Wars game to be. The Fallen, is it Fallen Order? Yeah, Fallen Order, which was completely linear. It was fun, but completely linear. It's just completely wide open. You can go to these high level areas if you want to get your butt kicked. You got a boat you can captain, and you can have naval wars, in these old ancient boats. And it's, I don't know, for me, it's just an amazing game, and I'm probably going to buy the next one because of it.
Awesome. Rock out if you enjoy it, man.
The funny
Definitely
thing is,
buy it.
and I don't, obviously because I've got a huge gap in my understanding of the lore now because I took so many games off, but this one doesn't even mention really the assassins or the Templars at all, from what I can tell. And it does tie into some of the the ancient the alien stuff that they do with Assassin's Creed. The alien race that supposedly was guiding some of the stuff. But as far as this was before the Order of the Assassins was even formed, so there's really nothing that ties into that other than I think the alien stuff.
Aliens.
So anyway, that's pretty much it there. I wanted to kind of update. Last time we podcasted, it was the beginning of the lockdowns, the stay-at-home orders, and we were. This seems like years ago, but we were watching the Tiger King. That's how long ago it was.
The Tiger King.
that was part of the show.
Tiger King days.
Right.
That's sad.
We were so naive. We were thinking, oh, this is great. I've got a month of working from home, and then we're going to be all the way back. No. Yeah. Here we still are. The only thing things feel like they're opening up a little bit here in Illinois. Part of it, I think, is that we went on such a tough lockdown so early on. People here took it seriously. I will say people here took it seriously. Now, it was cold, so
yeah,
we couldn't go to the beach anyway. It's not like we really had anywhere to be outside at the time. So that's part of it. But I think part of it also was because we saw what was happening in Chicago, which was very scary. The very first reported case of COVID-19 was in Chicago, and then it kind of exploded from there. So even the downstate people who are now skeptical were at the time kind of freaked out by that. And I think everybody, followed the stay-at-home kind of to the letter at that point. And so now we're kind of reaping the benefits of that. We've been slowly opening things back up. But I took a summer vacation a couple weeks ago. Actually, it was just last week. Seems like forever ago. We traveled through 2 different states. We traveled through Wisconsin, and then we go to Minnesota for our vacation. Wisconsin, it's interesting because you go there and it's almost, there are certain places where it's like you stop at a gas station and it's like nothing has ever happened. It's just the same as it always was.
Yeah.
And there are some places you stop by, like if you want to eat at a Culver's or something, it's like drive-through only. You can't come in. Some of them you could come in, but you couldn't dine. And so those rules were kind of fuzzy to me. I don't know who came up with what rules to follow, because even sometimes the same restaurant chains had different rules depending on which one you were at.
Oh, yeah.
The one thing that kind of did, the only thing that impacted the drive was, typically when you're going somewhere, I like to try and kind of stop and eat and get gas and go to the bathroom all at the same time, just kind of get it done and then go, because it's a 12-hour drive, so I don't want to make too many stops. It's more difficult to do that now because you can't stop and go into a restaurant typically to go to the bathroom anymore. So you got to look for rest areas, or sometimes gas stations.
Topic, because we too tried to take a vacation. Well, we took a vacation, and I think we almost have the same exact experience of, we chose a spot in the middle of nowhere, away from people, where we can just get out in nature. We also it was a 9-hour drive, and I almost had the same exact experience of, let's just try to plow through this drive as fast as we can, stop only for gas and to hit bathrooms. And yeah, it was the same experience for us, where like we, at least since we were kind of spread out in the van, we packed lunches and dinners and stuff. So we didn't have to stop for food. We only stopped twice, once at a rest room or rest area, and then once at a gas station to fuel up. And yeah, it was the same thing where it was just like when we were at the rest area, it was in like northern Ohio, and I was actually impressed. Everybody was wearing masks. The doors were like propped open, so you didn't have to touch anything. If that makes sense. And then at the gas station up in Michigan, we went up to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, so we just drove the entire length of Michigan. Fun times. And yeah, at the gas station, it was the same thing where like I knew that I was only stopping to pump gas, but yeah, up there it was almost like business as usual. Like everybody's just walking around and that. So there's nothing you couldn't fix with just, bathing yourself in hand sanitizer when you were done. So
Yeah, they've even gone to, because there is an understanding here that there are certain areas within this state that are higher risk than others just because
yeah.
of population density. So they've actually gone to the point, the governor has gone to the point of kind of carving up the state into different regions so that not the entire state, one of the biggest complaints people had was, well, we're all under the same rules as Chicago and we've had 5 cases here. You guys have had 10,000,
Yeah.
So it is here, but it's really not here like it is there, right? It's not the same
Ohio's
risk.
Sort of divided up by county now. So
Yeah, okay.
we're not like us city folk who are apparently screwing things up are not messing with the rural communities, right? Who don't want to be on lockdown. So that's
it's just purely population density. That's all it is. I mean, you can't help but interact with people when you live in the city.
I think that seems like it's a fair way to do it too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I mean, I did get I did for my work get some information about us starting to go back. They're starting in late August, but they're not going to be finished until probably September, November. Actually, gradually bringing people in, and I'm actually in the last phase of people coming in, because my boss let everybody know that we're doing fine from home. They don't have to be here. This is the hardest thing for a company that's almost 100 years old is to tell them, look, we are IT. We don't have to be there. I understand you business people want to, kiss babies and shake hands and stuff like that, but we don't have to be there. So, but it doesn't matter.
I'm genuinely impressed how it's shaking that culture up, though, right? Like I think I told you in passing, my company's actually adopting like a permanent remote workforce to some extent, right? Which is amazing.
And I was kind of hoping that we would do that. And in some cases they are. If people have like high risk situations, they are allowing them to continue to work from home, obviously, because they do want employee safety to be important. But I think the end goal by the end of the year, they said that we're going to have 50% of the workforce on campus at the same time, which means basically they've taken every other cubicle and kind of crossed it out, right? You can't sit here, you can sit here. You can't sit here, you can sit here. And how they're going to do that is my team is going to be in the office for a week, and then I'm going to be working from home for 3 weeks. So they're going to rotate people in. And you're going to be sharing the same cubicles, which means you've got to clean them good after every week, right? So,
that I do.
So, yeah, I
know how dirty keyboards get, right?
Well, yeah, but I have a laptop, so nobody else uses my keyboard, luckily.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, it's really strange. It's really strange. I was thinking maybe what they would do was rebuild the cubicles. Because we used to have bigger ones, right? We used to have bigger ones that were more spread apart, and as people have tried to become more efficient and
make bunk cubicles,
come up with these collaboration workspaces and all this other stuff. It's always an expense thing at the end, right? We're saving money because we're putting more people in smaller spaces, but they use these things like let's collaborate and all that. So yeah, it's just gotten smaller and smaller. So now we're just in like little 4-cube pods where we can basically roll our chair back and almost hit the other person on the other side of the aisle. But anyway, maybe we'll eventually get some bigger cubicles back. I tried to tell him, the way you solve this is everybody gets their own office.
I'm wondering if like the concept of open floor plans is dead at this point, right?
I think it might be, at least for a while.
Yeah.
I'd say a decade or so, probably.
Like my work has had, since I started there, they've had cube farms, but the cubes are huge. Like I could barely look over it if I tippy toe, and I'm a tall guy, right? So you practically feel like you have an office without a door. So
yeah, that's what I used to have.
good times.
Good times.
Yeah. So another way of dealing with this is I'm learning to be more self-reliant, and for the video people out there, I'm now cutting my own hair. Check this sexiness out. I got some wall trimmers, with the big boys, and I figure out how to give myself like a fade, right?
Really? That's not bad.
I'm doing good with it, and I've now gotten confident enough where I'm cutting my younger son's hair as well, and he doesn't feel bad about it. And my older son, on the other hand, is trying to grow his hair out as long as humanly possible. And my wife finally attacked him with some scissors just to sort of clean it up, but she's letting him keep it long. So he's got all the hair now in the family. And I look at it this way. It was like I think it was like $115 on these clippers. It's a set. And so far I've used them 4 times. So I've saved myself probably $60-ish, if you
You're
get
getting there.
Yeah. So I'm gonna get my money's worth out of these things. But yeah, the difference between the big clippers and like the little trimmer, beard things is night and day. It's like using a chainsaw versus, like a butter knife. So
yeah, definitely. I always kept a pair of those.
I'm sorry. I hear my dogs barking upstairs. I bought a device on Amazon. It's like a bark arrestor, where if it detects a dog bark, it emits a sonic sound that only they could hear.
What? Wow.
And my dogs, and I'm trying to train them to not bark at like squirrels on the porch. They look out the window and they see a squirrel and they just go nuts. And now they only bark once, and then the thing goes off, and they're like to a human, if you're right next to it, all you hear is like a sound, right? To them, it's just like, and it just detects dog barks. It is like the best $20 I've ever spent in my life.
That is funny. I didn't know that even existed.
Yeah, so I just heard my dog bark once upstairs, and suddenly it's just like, oh. Yeah, look that up. It's well, see, now I want to get more because they're waterproof and they're rechargeable, and all our neighbors' dogs stay outside all night barking, like all night long. I'm going to surround my house with these things just to mess with the neighbors' dogs.
I wonder if that's something you could do. I mean, you said you bought it off of Amazon. That almost seems like something that Alexa could do itself.
Maybe.
Somebody could write an app to do that. Of course, I think right now they say they only respond to the keyword right now.
Yeah.
Even though they're listening the whole time. Interesting. Yeah. Wow. Well, I can't top that.
We could put in the next show all of my experiences messing with Alexa API calls.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I've gotten some. Phone number. Shut up.
You asked for that one.
Alexa, shut up.
Canceling.
We live in a strange world, DJ.
Yeah.
I always thought we would have like Jetson robots, and we kind of do in some ways.
Well, I'm getting closer, and I know it's hard to tell. Hopefully you can see this. I'm getting closer to getting this button working right here, which is it's a burrito button, where I'm going to push this one single button on my Elgato Stream Deck, and a burrito will be delivered to my house. That is an API challenge I've set for myself. I'm getting the burrito button working.
You remember that scene in the Star Trek movie Star Trek 4 where where Scotty's trying to talk to the computer in the 80s because he's just so used to the voice interface.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He's talking to the computer and
We're-
it's just like nothing.
We're almost there. We are almost there.
Yeah. Good
All right.
times.
I hear you've been doing some plumbing.
Yeah. So, obviously some people are writing books or working on, fitness and stuff. For some reason, my wife and I decided we're going to renovate a bathroom. And as a result, I've decided, just like with the Clipper thing, I'm like, I'm going to try to do everything in this. And like, I taught myself how to solder plumbing by watching YouTube videos.
The copper piping, yeah.
Yeah, the copper piping. So I'm really proud of that so far. Now I'm watching videos on how to like seat toilets rings, and
That's not bad.
we've already done all the drywall. I've recorded all of this, but I'm so freaking far behind on editing everything. I think I have like 14 vlogs now to edit.
So are you yet to do the toilet ring?
No, yeah, we haven't done it.
Okay.
Yet. I haven't pulled the toilet up yet.
Quick tip on the toilet ring that my dad told me, and I think it's
Yeah.
probably a good idea. Double stack the wax toilet rings,
Huh.
because you don't want to have to pull that thing up and redo it.
So buy two of them and
Just buy two of them and stack them. Yep,
interesting.
that was the tip that he gave me. I've done it once.
Interesting.
It makes double sure that nothing leaks down there, and yeah, you don't want to have
Yeah.
to pull it up and redo it.
But how do you know if it's leaking? That's the problem.
It's bad enough to have to clean all that stuff up once. You don't have to do it twice.
Yeah. So the good news is, as a result of like doing this renovation, I've given myself free reign to just start buying tools as needed. And despite me telling people in the past that I was sick of cordless battery tools and stuff, and I think it was because I was using these old Craftsman 19-volt Craftsman stuff that just kept breaking or wearing out. I'm now a Milwaukee guy.
Mm-hmm.
I got me a Milwaukee impact driver, and I feel like I want to go build a house. Literally, it is so nice. You're just like, I need to start framing a house with this thing, or something, right? I need to find a screw to put a screw in with this thing. Like, that's how awesome it is. And I used it to drywall, put up 2 pieces of drywall, so it was like 30 screws in total. But once I was done, I was sad because I'm just like, well, now I don't get to use this screw anymore. Like,
That went too fast.
yeah, exactly. I'm like, I need to go build a deck. Just like, it's hard having a shiny new tool and you can't use it. I bought some new, drywalling tools, so I did that correctly, and it's been slow, but I'm not killing myself because I am still working an 8-hour workday.
Yeah.
And playing Fallout and cooking,
I saw your vlog on the plywood behind the vanity.
Yeah, the demo one.
I was just I was so confused as you were peeling the drywall back, and then was it plywood or something too? I don't remember what it was.
It was
No, it
flooring.
was double drywall, wasn't
It was
it?
pieces of flooring. Yeah. There's 2 pieces of drywall on top of each other.
Yeah, it was double drywall, and I just kept thinking, what happened there that made them do that? Because there's nothing easier than just putting up a big single sheet of drywall. Well, I mean, it's not
Just
easy,
cheap.
but why
They
would
were
you
just
cut it?
cheap.
Right? Why would you cut it in half and do it? So then I realized, oh, they tore out a vanity before and ruined the drywall, and then instead of replacing the whole piece, they
Instead
just
of doing it correctly.
Anyway,
they just slapped it on. And
I won't
called it
rehash
that.
the whole video. Just go watch DJ's vlog, and you too can be confused by what people do to their houses.
Yeah. Well, we bought the house from a company that flipped the house. So the previous owners were evicted. The house sat empty for so long that at some point there was a frozen pipe burst, I think in the bathroom that I'm in now. and I think they had ripped that out to fix the plumbing, and then they fixed everything, that floor, the floor below it, and they just did a really crappy job of just patching it back together because they're a company that just flips things, so they just spackled it together and sold
Sure.
it.
If it looks good and you
When we
can't
bought
tell.
it, it looked fine, right?
Right.
But then over like 2 or 3 years, suddenly just cracks started forming where they just didn't put joint tape in there, right? It was such a simple thing. If they just would have put some tape in there, it probably would have looked fine forever.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then once you take the wall off, you start to see the extent of the crazy. And like, I'm happy there wasn't mold, but
Yeah.
it just like you're like, who? Why? Like, I was like, I'm not even a handyman, and I know that was wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
What did you do? Why did you
Yeah.
do this?
Gave me an excuse to buy a drill, or an impact driver.
Well, we haven't been doing anything quite that ambitious. We did, however, this was my wife's idea, and I think it was a good idea. We got some plants and we started putting together kind of a plant garden in the backyard.
Mhm.
It's right on the kind of the edge of where the yard grass meets. There's kind of like, I want to say it's almost like prairie grass that's closer to the road, because it's a road that not many people use. And then on the other side of the road, there's a cornfield, bean field. So it's just kind of the stuff that they mow once a year type of stuff. We took some of that out. She used the weed whacker and got some of it out. And then we started planting a couple things. We got like 3 mini lilac bushes from Costco, and that was the first thing we put in there. And then we got some daylilies or something. But for the daylilies, what we wanted to do was put a bunch of mulch in there. And she found this thing. I don't know if she saw it. I don't know if she saw it somewhere on the internet. You know how people put like that material down to keep the weeds down underneath the mulch.
I swear by that stuff.
So we didn't do that, but what we did was we cut up cardboard boxes that we had laying around, and we laid the cardboard down, and then we put the mulch on top of that. And over time, that cardboard will eventually break down. But for the time being, it'll keep the weeds from kind of popping up through the mulch, and so we won't have to go in there and weed that stuff for a while.
Yeah, I watched this like organic backyard farmer guy, and I remember him doing that specifically. He was like, "Here's a great organic way to to de-weed your flower beds."
The dirt in the yard is pretty bad, so we wanted to make sure that whatever we put back there would actually enhance it. Eventually, we're not actually even sure that the flowers are going to survive, because it's just so rocky and sandy back there. We've never really had much except that old prairie grass that'll grow anywhere. It's basically a weed. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, the bushes seem like they're doing well. I'm not sure the daylilies are going to make it, but at least we had a project during COVID.
Could have got some new tools, man.
Yeah, I don't think I had to buy anything for that one.
Dude, this lockdown has really helped with. I started doing the YNAB, the You Need a Budget.
Yeah. Yep.
And I don't know if it's because of the lockdown, because we just can't go out and spend money, or the fact that I'm really conscious of where everything goes. But we've been using it now 6 months, and I'm now I'm budgeting money that I get today. I'm literally budgeting it for stuff in September already.
Yep. That's a good.
Like, I've aged our money like 130 days or something ridiculous.
We did use that for a while, and it's a really good habit former to get you to think ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really good for that.
It's amazing. If anybody ever needs to talk about it, reach out to me. It's awesome. So what the hell is Facebook gaming?
That's
like Mixler is shutting down.
Right. That was the news. Right.
And they're like that came up, and I'm like, wait, what?
That was the question, because I didn't know. I mean, I kind of knew there was Facebook gaming, kind of like I know there's Apple games and,
Yeah.
maybe Google Games Store or whatever. Yeah, I kind of know that stuff's out there, but what is it? Is it a streaming service? I don't understand.
Apparently, yeah. They're trying to Facebook's trying to get into the live streaming aspect, but I really gotta admit, Twitch is really freaking taken over for that. And YouTube, I would probably say, is almost like a solid second. I have watched like one single stream on Mixler back in the day,
Right.
and I never could. I don't know, just something about it. I just didn't enjoy it. And it's entirely up to the person you're watching, obviously.
I can remember when I was doing my extra live stream, which was now probably 5 years ago or so, maybe even 6. Twitch was there. I think it was before Amazon bought them. And there was one other one. I think it was like Box or something. It wasn't even.
Yeah.
I don't think it was Mixler. I don't think Mixler was even around yet. So, yeah, I think Twitch has a head start on everybody. And once Amazon threw their money behind it, you knew that there was something there.
Oh yeah.
Because Bezos doesn't buy anything. He's not like Google. He doesn't just buy stupid things to see if he can make it work. He's a businessman, right?
The best thing they ever did, though, honestly, I think, was when they established people to do creative streaming, right? To where they said, "Oh, this just isn't video games now."
Right, right.
And as soon as they did that, it just exploded. Like, do you remember like when they started streaming just like nonstop Bob Ross streams, and it's just like, oh, this is where it gets good.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like, I mean, it's YouTube and Twitch are the way that our kids consume television.
Yeah, yeah. We don't do cable anymore, and I know myself and my kids, we pretty much just watch YouTube for the most part these days. If it's not something I'm streaming off my Plex server, I'm watching YouTube.
Right.
I mean, I could comfortably say I probably consume an hour or two of YouTube a day instead of television, right?
So I think it's safe to say that I probably will never watch Facebook gaming streaming. I barely watch Twitch as it is. I mean, I do every once in a while. But
Yeah.
I mean, I certainly don't go out of my way to look for new streaming services.
Yeah, yeah. One thing I think would be fascinating is if somebody finally makes good enough software to where you could spin up your own streaming service, kind of like what Mastodon did to compete with, Slack and all those stuff, right? Twitter, yeah. Imagine a situation where, because we have to be on that cusp where people can say, oh, I'm just going to make my own streaming service and I'll run it off my own website. I mean, I can't imagine the cost. I think that the cost is probably, the bandwidth cost is probably the thing for that, right?
Yeah.
From a technical side. But, I mean, at that point, then you could stream whatever you want. You are your own company, so you could monetize it, whatever you want to do, right?
Yeah, that will happen I think the monetization is the big key piece there. If people finally realize that Twitch / YouTube, Google are taking way more than they should from the talent, then people might leave. But up until that point, for like hobbyists and stuff, they're not going to want to, I don't think, get into that much detail with technology and the expense and everything else that goes with it. And that's really what the power of YouTube was originally, was anybody could do it. You didn't have to have terabytes of storage and,
Yeah. It's a thing.
So I don't know why this popped into my head, but you and I are old, DJ. I will say we're at least middle-aged.
We're wise.
We're wiser than other people. I don't know if that's true. But I had this thought. when was the first time you can remember thinking, because I'm seeing these tweets now kind of from 30-somethings, millennials saying, oh my goodness, I feel so old. So-and-so is doing this, look how old this guy looks now. Remember when, all this stuff where they're talking about how they feel old and they're 10 years, 15 years younger than I am. And so what does that make me? But
Yeah.
I started thinking, well, what was the first time that I was, I went from that person where I was the young person that people were like, oh, here's the up and coming generation, to, whoa, there's a generation behind me. And now I feel kind of old, You remember that moment?
Do you remember always feeling like, oh, they're an adult, and you still felt like you were not an adult?
Yeah.
And then suddenly you realize you're like, oh crap, I'm an adult.
Yeah.
I think the first thing I noticed, and you're going to love this too, it's such a technical excuse. A couple years ago, I remember I was trying to fill out some online form, and I had to put my date of birth in, and I had to scroll where you do the drop down to choose your year. And I'm like, God, I had to scroll. So I'm like, how many times do I got to scroll to find my year? It's like, yeah, my year's pretty far down the list now.
It is, isn't it? Last millennium.
And then I think the other thing was when it was 2 or 3 years ago, my wife and I refinanced our mortgage, and it's now like we have like 12 years left, and we locked in a huge lower rate. And like I felt proud because I'm just like, I own over half my house. You're just like, I paid off half my mortgage, and you're just like, oh shit, I've already paid half off my mortgage.
Yeah.
Of a 30-year mortgage, right? Yeah, that was a wake up call right there.
So I can remember, I'm going to have to kind of set the stage. So, okay, young people listening, if there are any out there, I did not use the internet until I was in college.
Damn.
Okay? Understand this. There was no way to send a piece of paper from your house to somebody else's house with a message on it except the U.S. Postal Service or a fax machine. And fax machines were invented because they were fast, right?
Oh, yeah.
You could put a piece of paper in the machine and it would instantly, after some negotiation, spit out somewhere else. And businesses came up with fax machines because the Postal Service was too slow.
Mm-hmm.
So the first time I sat down in front of a Unix terminal and ran the .mail program and was able to send a message to somebody I went to high school with at another college hundreds of miles away, and they saw it immediately after I clicked send, or not clicked send, at that time it was text-based. I just typed send. I was absolutely amazed. I knew we were living in the future at that point. Right? Because that was instantaneous. There was no delay there.
This is a great story, but you lost me at sitting down at a Unix terminal.
Okay. I actually did that.
Never did that.
I actually did that.
Never did that.
When I knew that I was getting old was when I read an article on this mysterious internet. At this point I had a job and I'd been in it for a while, maybe 7 or 8 or 9 years. And I read an article that said the next generation only uses texting because email is too slow.
Yeah.
And I knew I was old. That was the moment. That was the moment that I knew things were changing, and I was no longer the young guy that people were going to look at in the office and go, well, what do young people think about this?
Yeah. I will admit there is a generation gap in my office that I see where I'm part of that culture that hates email now because I just hate sifting through message chains and email, right? I'd
Yeah.
rather somebody pound it out between a couple people in like a MS Teams or some sort of a software like that, like a Slack or something, right?
I'm okay with that as long as I can go back in 6 months and look it up again when somebody asks me the same question.
Yeah, you do have to be able to have that search history.
Yeah.
So
So I mean, for some reason that popped into my head, and I thought this is an interesting question because you and I are pretty much exactly the same age, and
oh yeah.
and everybody hits that point at some point. You see it on Twitter now. Like I said, the millennials are going, "Whoa, there's a Zoomer generation behind me, and now I'm the older one." Which
Exactly.
is to me is kind of funny. So we've all been there. We all go through it.
I had the perfect tweet for this the other day. I retweeted something where it said, "Are you feeling old yet? Skyrim was released 9 years ago, 7 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, and 2 years ago."
Leave Skyrim alone. I'm sick of your Skyrim jokes. Leave Bethesda out of this.
I love Skyrim.
I love it too. I love it. I let's go ahead and talk about this next one because it's the Into the Wild thing that you said we could bump it later, but I think it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Go
So the movie and book Into the Wild. Chris McCandless travels around the U.S. Is almost like a hobo. Somehow decides he wants to go out and live in the wilds of Alaska. Goes out there, finds a school bus in the middle of nowhere in Alaska, and tries to survive. Makes a couple mistakes, and spoiler, he dies. Right. The book is awesome. The movie is probably in my top 10 most favorite movies of all time because it is just gorgeous, right? And Eddie Vedder did the soundtrack to it like directly, and it is just a fantastic movie. It's one of the few movies I legitimately own on Blu-ray, right? And I only have like 10 Blu-rays. But this bus is still out there, and apparently every year people who love the movie have been making hikes to try to find this bus. It's like a popular thing because it's just like, oh my God, this bus exists.
Mm-hmm.
But just like in the movie, it's in a weird spot, and the Alaska State Police got sick of rescuing people who get stranded trying to find this bus. So I guess during this whole COVID lockdown thing, the Alaska National Guard went out there with a helicopter and picked it up and took it. It's just like, and there's pictures and video of this famous bus where this guy, lived and died, literally being airlifted by like a military helicopter. It's just like, is that a good thing or is it a bad thing? Like, are they destroying history at this point? But at the point, I see their point where like, maybe it is better that specific thing survives in a museum or in a, some sort of a car museum or exhibit, right? Versus out in the middle of nowhere where people are legitimately dying to try to see it.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, I think somebody did die too.
oh yeah.
I think somebody did die out there. Yeah, I totally agree. I think I can appreciate, kind of like you, I really enjoy going to places that I've either heard of or read about or seen on TV and making that physical connection with, oh my goodness, this person was here. I specifically went to see the Bellagio the first time I went to Las Vegas because I loved Ocean's 11. I loved,
Nice.
watching those guys. That's kind of a pivotal scene in that movie where they're done with the heist and they all just kind of go their separate ways. And so I really wanted to go there and kind of just stand where, Brad Pitt and George Clooney had stood and that kind of stuff. And that's a dumb example because it's just a movie. But, there's other things like, for example, when you go to see the Declaration of Independence in Washington, D.C., that's a very moving thing. When I went to see Lincoln's tomb in Springfield, that's a very moving thing, and so I really like doing that too, but at the same time, people were dying.
Oh yeah.
People were being stupid about it,
There's not a footpath to get there.
there, and to my understanding, he was pretty good, but he wasn't like a super survivalist either. He was just
No,
he had just
he was
decided
just
he was going to go
some
do it.
guy. Yeah,
Yeah.
he graduated college, so he was educated, but at the same point, he just made some dumb mistakes, and he ended up paying for it, right? But
Yeah.
it's like the way he lives his life, and obviously we don't know him directly. We only know him through people's interviews that turned into the book, which were then sort of romanticized into the movie, which is just gorgeous. So allegedly, like, he's one of those, like, possessions weigh you down, live your life free and blah, 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 blah. And the fact that, like, because of him, they had to get a helicopter to steal a bus, just it's just like, I was like, was this like a poetic alternate ending to his tale? It's just like the government had to come take his bus.
Yeah. Well, and here's the other thing. It wasn't his bus, right?
Exactly. Yeah. He just
found
the
it out
bus.
there and decided to live in it.
Yeah.
The problem was it was on the other side of a river or a creek or something that during certain parts of the year you could not cross.
Exactly. And he just happened to cross it when it was low, and then he got stuck.
Right.
Yeah. And it's the same thing. People go out to see it, and they die trying to cross this river.
Because it's still there. The river's still there.
Yeah.
The danger is still there. Yeah.
It's not a bridge.
So that is an interesting, and I haven't read the book or seen the movie, but I've read a lot about it. I don't remember when I stumbled across an article about it, but I read the synopsis and and then I went to the Wikipedia page, and did a little bit of cross research and stuff. And it is a fascinating story.
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, it's dangerous out there. This is Alaska, guys.
Yeah.
There's a lot of dangerous land out there.
I 2 thumbs up the movie for anybody who's on the cusp, if they're thinking about watching it or not, so. Definitely go watch that.
It belongs in a museum.
It does belong in a museum. If that bus was in a museum somewhere, I probably would actually go see it. to be fair, right?
All right. I was going to move into the "What Are We Into" section of the show. Some of the stuff is a little bit dated now, but because we came up with these show notes about 6 weeks ago or so, 4 to 6 weeks ago, and then we both went on vacations on different weeks, so we could not settle on a recording date until now. But I still am. I discovered that Community, the TV show Community from the, I say not really early 2000s. I think 2009 is when it started.
Mm-hmm.
This is a show that I watched the first season of when it was on TV. I would actually DVR it along with The Office and a couple other shows I enjoyed. And then I kind of fell off of it, although I recognized some of the genius on the show at the time. Not as genius, I just thought it was funny. I thought the people were very good in it. And so it is on Netflix now, and I'm doing a watch through of all 6 seasons. It's actually better than I remember in certain seasons. Like I said, I only got through, I think, the first season when it was on TV, and it really starts to pick up in the second season.
I was gonna say, how old is it? Because when you convinced me to start watching it, and I'm like in season 2, and it's kind of still relevant, right?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't feel dated like when you're watching some of the old Friends, like Friends.
Right. Well,
I went back and started watching some of the old Friends episodes, and those are dated now.
Yeah. It's I think season 2 would have been 2010.
That's when I knew I was getting old, was when Friends.
When Joey said, "How you doing?" and nobody responded. That's when I knew I was old.
Joey got me too. Too far.
He would have. You're right. No, he would have, just for saying that. You can't even say that anymore. Wow. Okay, I'm not going to get into that. Nothing controversial we said.
What was that thing on the Naked Gun? It was like, chicks hate it when you call them broads. That's my mind went right there. Like, The Naked Gun, another movie you can't recreate.
No, definitely not. But I'm shocked now as I go back, and something that I liked at the time, and I'm looking at this cast, and I'm looking at all the people that were involved in the show, and I'm going, this show was absolutely packed with talent.
yeah.
Absolutely packed with talent. Not only did you have, probably the most famous person to come out of it, which was Donald Glover, aka Childish Gambino. This was his first television appearance. He was a writer on 30 Rock before, but he was never an actor before this show. So that's pretty amazing to me. A guy just decides to be an actor, and then he just decides to be a like a Grammy-winning artist.
Exactly. Swimming in that Oprah money.
You got Joel McHale, who he's done several things. He's not as big as Donald. You've got Ken Jeong, I think is how you say his last name, who he's done the Hangover movies, and he does The Masked Singer now, which I don't watch, but I hear is a pretty big show. You've got John Oliver, who is super mega star at this point. He does his own show, and he's absolutely a brilliant news comedian, just absolutely brilliant.
Is it sad that I think the weakest person on this cast was actually Chevy Chase?
I was going to leave Chevy to last, but you're right. You're absolutely right.
Out of the lineup, I thought he I'm only in the second season, right?
Yep.
But I think I just don't like his character. You're just it's Chevy Chase.
Yeah, and I honestly I think that's part of the reason.
Anything back in the day, right?
That's part of the reason he left the show.
Okay.
If you will listen to, I've read a lot of things. You could probably even consider some of the stuff I've read, gossip stuff, which Hollywood gossip I do not do, but I was interested in what happened in the show.
Yeah.
You can hear there's lots of things about why he left the show, but that was the original reason he gave, was that my character was not progressing. It was not getting any better over all the seasons, and you could kind of see that. I mean, you'd think you'll have a show where Chevy Chase's character is starting to learn and starting to progress forward and maybe be a little bit more understanding of things, and then the very next show he's making a gay joke again, and it's kind of they're going back to that well. So I could kind of feel his frustration there. But where was I? Jim Rash, who is he plays the dean. He's a brilliant person. He's actually the only one I think that's won an Oscar for a screenplay that he wrote. And last but not least, Dan Harmon, who obviously he created the show and has done Rick and Morty since then, super mega star. And last but not least, the Russo brothers, who did nothing except direct some of the biggest Marvel films to come out in the last 5 years.
Exactly.
It's like, how did they get all these people together? How did they recognize all this talent at that time? It's just incredible to me.
Yeah.
And then they had people. The funny thing is, if you listen to the Darkest Timeline podcast, which has Ken Jeong and Joel McHale on it, they started doing it during COVID. If you listen to them, this show was never a ratings hit. Every season they thought they were going to get canceled, and they were trying to bring in people like Jack Black and Owen Wilson to do cameos just to get people to watch it, because there was so much other stuff going on at the time that were distracting people. Like Glee was on the air, Parks and Rec was on the air. I think Big Bang Theory came on during that time. So they were competing with some of these shows, and they could never stack up against them.
However, I never watched this live once.
Yeah.
And I didn't even start watching it until you told me to just sit down and watch a couple episodes. And I was aware that it existed. I saw all the advertisements. I remember seeing it, was like, oh, Chevy Chase is back. I was like, damn. I remember seeing all that. And there was so much else. There was so much stuff out at that time that I was watching,
Yep. Yeah. And that's
so I
what
just
happened.
never got around to this.
I think that's where a lot of people fell on this stuff. And that's kind of where I fell,
I can
honestly.
go back and watch it now and enjoy it. So.
In 2009, 2010, I'm trying to think of how old my kids were. 9, 7, 5, and 3. So I didn't have a whole lot of time to sit down and watch television,
I had a 1-year-old then.
Yes, exactly. So I mean, when you get that many kids at that age, you just kind of catch stuff when you can. you don't make an appointment to watch television at that age. So it's really nice. I understand that there is some conversation about wrapping up Community with a movie. now that it's on Netflix and it has gathered some steam and some, it's always had a very loyal kind of core following. Even when it was off the air, people still had like forums and stuff where they would talk about it and things like that. So the thought
feel
was
comfortable with Netflix throwing money towards that project. Is like a bookend, sort of a wrap up.
Right, exactly.
But like if they
I
tried to
can see that.
reboot it as a new series, I don't think that would work.
No, I think they'd like to do the Firefly thing and just do
a
the
lot of
movie
their
and wrap it up.
reboots have just flopped.
Right. Well, I mean,
So.
and you couldn't do, let's be honest, you could not get that cast back together for much more than an actual blockbuster movie, right? You couldn't do another series with that same cast. You couldn't afford them, right? So, I hope they are able to do that. There was always kind of a line that continued to come up within the show called, 6 seasons in a movie, because one of the students, the Abed character, is a film studies student.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things he always came back to was a good series on television has 6 seasons in a movie. So this became a rallying cry for some of the fans of the show. Every year when it was going to get canceled, they kept pushing it forward, saying, we got to get 6 seasons in a movie out of this show. So like the 5th and 6th season was kind of pushed forward by the fan base because they wanted to make sure that they actually, the show is so meta anyway, right? They wanted to make sure that this line from the movie actually came true for the series itself. So I do hope they're able to finish it off. And everybody in the cast seems to be on board from what I've been reading lately. I think the big problem is COVID right now. They've got to contend with when can we start working on this. And I know Dan Harmon, who's going to have to write the thing, was like, I'm not going to write something unless everybody's on board, because I'm not going to spend all my time writing this thing. And then, Donald Glover says, sorry, I'm too busy, because you can't do the movie without Donald Glover. You can't have it without Troy. It just won't work. So, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that they'll be able to. I'm hoping Dan is in his den right now, starting to write up the Community script, so that we can have a bookend to the series.
Yeah, so real quick subtopic on that. Like, I cannot stand watching Zoom call TV shows.
Yeah.
It's the worst entertainment ever. So like if they can't get actors together, to actually play off each other safely, obviously I don't want to force them into that, but that's going to be an interesting twist to entertainment going forward, which I think is why I think I'm watching so much YouTube, is because most of the stuff I watch on YouTube are individuals or couples, and their production value is just light years ahead of some of the stuff I'm seeing on live TV, where it's just talking windows, right?
Yeah.
Like our podcast.
Yeah. Well, we're not trying though.
We've always done it this way. That's how I knew we were getting old.
I did want to mention the funny thing about, I watched The Darkest Timeline. They put it on YouTube. That's how I actually found it. It came up on one of my YouTube suggestions, the very first episode after they'd done it, like a week after they'd done it. And I pulled it up, and I literally looked at it and went, our podcast looks better than this.
Exactly.
I mean, we're not even trying. And all they had was like, they had this crappy, I think one of them was using an iPhone for their video, and it was like, wow.
Yeah.
These big Hollywood stars, they have no idea how to do a video podcast.
Actors and comedians and all that, they have no clue on lighting, camera placement, audio. Like, they just
So what you said, you started watching it. What are your thoughts? I know you haven't been raving about it to me, so that tells me that you're just kind of okay with it.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it, and there's some funny moments, but I will admit I'm guilty of sort of watching it and doing something else at the same time, right? Like, it's one of those things where like I'll have it on the other screen while I'm working or something, and I'll see something and it's hilarious and I'll react to it, but then I'll just go back to whatever I'm doing. And you're saying that there's like some episodes that have been taken out of.
Yeah. They did take one episode out. You probably would have enjoyed the episode, actually. It was I think they did 2 Dungeons and Dragons episodes. And the first one has been removed from Netflix.
Wow.
There was and I wasn't going to get controversial. I don't agree with it. I think it's a knee-jerk reaction. So there was an episode. There was a very quick gag on the beginning of the D&D episode where Ken Jeong's character, Senior Chang, shows up to play D&D, and he's in full cosplay. You know, he's like really into it.
Yeah.
But he cosplays as a dark elf, and so his face is completely painted black. So they get a quick blackface joke out of it. Really, you know, I think Yvonne Simpson. What's her last name? I can't remember. The girl, the woman who plays Shirley. She looks over and she goes, "Oh, we just going to ignore this hate crime over here in the corner," or something like that. And so it calls attention to the fact that he's oblivious to the fact that he's being offensive to people. He really just he didn't mean to do it, but it comes off terribly, which was the joke. That was the joke. It takes 15 seconds out of the episode to play this joke, right? And they removed the whole thing because of it. So first of all, kind of the joke was that he was so stupid he didn't realize it was offensive, you know? That was the joke. We know it's offensive. We're not doing it because it's offensive. We're doing it because he's stupid, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That was the joke. So I know it's a very sensitive time. I think if they were to look into that episode a little bit deeper, and maybe if it was a time that wasn't quite, everything was quite so touchy at the moment as far as race relations goes, that would not make my top 10 offensive blackface list.
Razored that scene out, right?
That was my thought too. I thought you could probably have cut the episode around that scene somehow, but they probably just didn't want to mess with it.
Yeah.
We may see it show up again at some point with either a disclaimer on the front or maybe that scene edited in a way that we don't see that joke. I don't know.
Yeah. It's the new.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not that way with everything. I think a lot of the things that have been, I don't even want to use the word censored because now that's putting me in a certain place. But a lot of the things that have been looked at again and reevaluated are probably in the right. I just happen to think in this case they were a little bit hasty.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to skip my gaming chair. I got a new gaming chair. Next story.
Yeah. Look on Twitter. Pictures.
Yeah. What are we looking forward to? This is an interesting section. There's a lot of things. We talked a little bit about the Fallout series that was teased.
Mm-hmm.
This sounds
Fallout
pretty.
TV series.
Yeah, this sounds pretty interesting. This is Amazon Prime, correct? I think.
Yes, Amazon Prime, and it's being produced by the producers of Westworld. And after seeing what they've done on seasons 1, 2, and 3 of Westworld, I am all in on this. Like, Westworld started off awesome, and then it just turned into a mind game, and it's so twisty and turny. And I think I'm actually enjoying it more than Game of Thrones. And Game of Thrones was just a mess of plot and intrigue.
That's high praise.
Yeah. And they're I could see people's criticism of some of the Westworld stuff, because they probably thought it was going this direction and then it suddenly went that direction, you know? And the fact that team is they're able to write and produce this Fallout series, and they have the budget and might of Amazon behind that. Oh my God, it's going to be so good. This is going to be a game changer in entertainment.
They
can get the actors together.
Yeah, I haven't watched Westworld. I don't watch HBO stuff, but I've seen enough to know that it looks very intriguing and that it's very well done. And
so much money involved in it, like a stupid amount.
The thing that really excites me about a Fallout series is that the world is so rich and deep for anything you want to do. And the cool thing about it is you don't have, like, in some ways the Witcher series, which is, I understand, is based on the books more than the games, but the games are loosely based on the books anyway. You're kind of you're kind of hemmed in a way because people already know those characters and they already know some of the things they've done and some of the ways they act. With Fallout, the protagonist is you.
Yeah.
So everybody plays it slightly differently. So there's not really any one storyline that you need to follow in Fallout. You could do just about anything, and it's such a vast, expansive world. The possibilities are literally endless, and so I'm really excited to see what they can do with it. I had a couple ideas, and I wrote a blog post about it. If you want to see that, at braxwolf.wordpress.com.
Good article, by the way.
Yeah, I had the major arcs for all the 3 first seasons, at least kind of in mind. You know what's bad about this is that tweet came out when I was on vacation, so I had a lot of time to think about it. But even if they weren't, if they want to follow that, go ahead and give me a call. I'll sell you the rights. But even if they don't want to follow my 3 season arc, I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, I there's so much open lore to go in any direction, and it'll probably still be awesome, as long as it's not just a 10-episode series of someone going through destroyed buildings picking up aluminum cans, right? That would be the only fail.
and making pistols out of them.
Or if every single episode is another settlement needs our help.
Yeah. I got this bathtub here. What can I do with it? I'm going to make a pistol. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, oh man, I am excited to see what they do, and I've got Amazon Prime, so for once I can actually watch it, watch a series that people are talking about.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see my first suit of power armor in that series. That is, that's going to be awesome. That reveal is going to be awesome.
Oh yeah.
Greyhound is on Apple TV. I was looking forward to that. Since the show notes have been written, have actually seen it. So I'm no longer looking forward to seeing it for the first time.
I'm so far behind. I haven't watched it yet. I'm sorry.
I
want to watch it.
I'll do a really quick review. I think it's a very good naval action movie. It moves very, very quickly. And I was a little bit surprised by that with Tom Hanks because he's not an action star, really. You kind of expect a certain thing from Tom Hanks, but there was a lot of naval warfare in this one, and it moves very quickly from one set to the next. As far as there's not a lot of downtime between the fight scenes, and there's a very little bit of a story in that he's the captain of this destroyer that's escorting a merchant convoy across the Atlantic, and they have dark zones where they don't have any air support, no air cover, because of fuel concerns for how far the aircraft can go. So it's basically his responsibility to keep the convoy from being attacked, and this particular convoy gets attacked by a German U-boat wolf pack, which is basically just a pack of submarines that their whole job was to go out and sink merchant boats that were crossing the Atlantic.
Sort of molest all the supply trains.
Right.
Yeah.
And so he's, they're hunting him, he's hunting them. It's kind of a little bit of a back and forth, but it moves very fast. It's not a very long movie. We're kind of used to these 2-hour mark movies. This one's a little bit closer to 1 hour and 30, I think, maybe a little bit over. In fact, the very final scene, I was kind of thinking, oh, is this really over, or is something else going to happen? They kind of sail, they don't really sail, but they kind of chug away, saying, okay. And I thought, well, maybe that one guy's still out there, and they're going to have one more thing, because I was just so used to this 2-hour time frame. But no, it was actually the end of the movie. They didn't do a Lord of the Rings thing on us where they ended it 4 times. But yeah, it's.
It was the action. You say there was little breaks in it. I've watched some movies where it was just like so much action that just like you were just physically exhausted from just the rush of watching every single stressed out scene, right?
Yeah.
Does it suffer that way at all?
I did not feel that way watching the movie, but I think I could see some people might. Yeah, I mean, I would.
It's like in like the Saving Private Ryan, right? There's still these slow down times, where you could have dialogue and everybody's just kind of sitting around smoking a cigarette or whatever, right? it's not all Normandy Beach. you
Right,
know?
right. I think one of the things that's interesting about it is I've heard that Tom Hanks actually wrote the film, and he did a ton of research before he did, which means that almost all of the stuff that goes on within the action scenes, the call downs to the different areas, and the terminology being used, and all of that is very authentic. I've heard people in the service say that this is a very authentic movie. The one criticism that one of the YouTubers I watched had was there is a point where somehow the captain of the German U-boat is able to get onto the frequency that all of the U.S. destroyers are using and kind of taunt them, which is like, what? You know, that's kind of out of place. Although I understand why they did it for the movie, because otherwise, I think they're trying to kind of trying to put an evil spin, somewhat of an evil antagonistic spin on this wolf pack. Otherwise, it's just a group of submarines that keep popping up and down, right?
Yeah.
So they're trying to make a bad guy out of it, which only kind of worked a little, because you can, everything else is so realistic, and then you get to that part and you're like, well, what?
Yeah.
That
From my
never
side, I saw it. I loved the trailer, and I'm like, it's Tom Hanks. I'm gonna watch this, right? No
Yeah.
matter what, I'm still gonna watch it. But
Yeah, I would say.
were you more in because you enjoy warships?
Yeah, I think so. I think so, because I understand, just from playing even as arcadey as the game is, I understand the role of a destroyer in hunting down a submarine, right?
Yeah.
And I understand how a submarine, some of the maneuvers that they use and stuff too. So I mean, that does make it a lot more fun to watch. But I think anybody could enjoy the movie. I would put it, as far as Tom Hanks movies go, it's probably average to above average. But that's a hard thing to compare it to, though, because Tom Hanks movies are usually very, very good.
Yeah.
But as far as naval warfare movies, it's probably one of the better ones I've seen in quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
Midway was good, but the characters in Midway were kind of cartoonish. They were. Yeah, it's kind of like Independence Day. You know how everything was very exaggerated in that movie? That's kind of what Midway reminded me of that. It was a big blockbuster with a lot of special effects, and it was fun to watch in the theater, but the characters were kind of like caricatures instead of characters. In this, you really feel like the guys, the people in the boats, they're real sailors. You feel like these guys are actual characters. So I would say give it a watch. Give it a watch. Along with that, I wanted to talk a little bit about Apple TV, because I did read a headline that said Tom Hanks was not really all that excited that this film went straight to streaming. And you could understand that, being that he wanted people to see, it was made to be seen on the big screen, right? And you're probably going to make more money that way too, I would imagine. Although I don't know all the ins and outs of the streaming business model. But this thing has broken all kinds of records for Apple TV. And from what I understand, most people kind of liked being able to watch it in their house.
Yeah. I've had this conversation because obviously my wife she manages a movie theater, right? And with the COVID outbreak, she's pretty much out of a job. So I tell her all the time, I'm like, I think traditional movie theaters are just going to dry up. And I see all of entertainment shifting to streaming. Like, I genuinely feel that. And now you could tell that that's happening, because now every sub company, traditional, production company, has now made their own streaming service. Peacock just launched last week. And I think the problem is, at that point now, then it's going to be wars of licensing and subdividing. But with more companies getting into it, you would hope it would drive the prices down. But so far, I've seen that doesn't seem to be the case, right? So I don't know who's winning in this situation other than the people collecting the money, right?
Yeah. Well, this was always. I can remember.
Yeah. I got a free year of Apple TV because we bought a brand new Apple TV device, right?
Hmm.
And I love that Apple TV device to death. I would happily use that over any other thing like the Fire Stick or whatever what's the Google thumb drive thing,
It's
right?
like
The
the
Chromecast, is
Chromecast,
it?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. The Apple TV is, to me, even without using other Apple stuff, is worth every penny of it. It is just fantastic, right? And it comes with a free year of the Apple TV subscription. But when that free year is up, I don't think I'm going to subscribe to the Apple TV service just because it just doesn't seem like they got several good hits, but it is nowhere as extensive as like a Netflix or a Hulu or an HBO or something, right?
Even a Disney, yeah.
Yeah, even yeah. They have some good stuff, but they just have a fraction of the stuff. Like you could not. Apple TV legitimately has so little content that you could, honest to God, probably watch it all within a month and then run out of stuff to watch.
Hmm.
Whereas, like on Netflix, that'd be physically impossible to watch everything, right?
So they're at the $10 a month price too, right?
Yeah, I believe it's like $9.99 or something.
So I guess what I would say is if you
Yeah,
want to if you want to
wait
watch a
until
good
the show's out, get a month,
yeah,
binge it, and let the service expire. Right?
if you want to watch a good Tom Hanks movie and have your whole family watch it for $10,
There you go. I mean, yeah, when you put it in that, when you put it like that, yeah, that is a hell of a lot cheaper than taking a family to a movie theater.
and to be honest, it's not that far. Remember Blockbuster? They were charging $5 a movie even when they were going out of business 6-7 years ago. So I mean, it's
Right?
not that far off of even the home video market where that was.
Yeah. Another
So
thing I think is like a lot of people who love consuming entertainment like this can now afford to get even entry level entertainment systems in their house. Bigger
true.
TVs,
Yep.
somewhat surround, even if it's like a surround bar, right? In the past, trying to consume a movie on an old 4x3 tube television was just a crime, right?
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
and now it's like, people build gigantic entertainment systems in their house, so it's yeah,
That's
and
funny.
that's yeah, I think I'm all in on streaming at this point, so.
It's going to be interesting to see how the theaters. I wonder if this is one of those things where in 15 years we're going to tell the young kids. I remember the first major blockbuster movie that had to stream on a streaming service that wasn't
Yeah.
specifically produced for a streaming service.
Yeah. Do you remember the first one like that comes to mind? Oh my God, what was the movie? The Interview. The one where the guys were going, Seth Rogen and them were going to interview Kim Jong Un. Do
Oh
you
yeah,
remember that?
yeah.
Do you remember because North Korea threatened to attack theaters?
That was the
So
Sony
then,
hack. Yeah,
yeah, so then Sony's like, you know what? Here, have it, Netflix. And they gave it to Netflix.
that's right.
And then overnight, it was like the best movie ever. And everybody in America had watched it.
That's
I
right.
think that was the first example of a
I've-
blockbuster movie just saying, you know what? It was meant to be watched on the screen. And then they're like, nope, here,
Yeah,
go
yeah,
crazy,
because
Netflix.
they threatened to leak it or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they're like, all right, fine.
Yeah, we're still going to win.
That's funny. I forgot about that. You're right.
and and now it's just like that happens all the time now. So
Yep.
I do think that movie theaters are still going to stick around for indie films and blockbuster, the summer blockbuster stuff, right? But I think everything in between, where it's like a risk ratio of like, cost versus profit, is probably going to go streaming.
Yeah, I could see that happening.
But I still think the Avenger movies, that stuff is still probably going to be, people will definitely still go watch that in a theater because that and like watching a horror film in a packed theater is a completely different experience than watching it in your house by yourself with a cat. You know what I mean?
I hope you're right, because I would miss going to the theater if it just wasn't an option. You know,
Yeah.
we probably only go 4 or 5 times a year. I used to go a lot more often when I was younger. You know, when I had no real expenses and I still had a job, and you know,
The good old days.
the latest thing was coming out. You know, yeah. I mean, I used to do. You know, every weekend I'd be looking to see what was coming out that weekend. But you know, the past 25 years or so, it's just been every once in a while. I think the last movie we saw before everything shut down was 1917, which is a good one. I would recommend that one too. But I would totally miss the theater experience if it wasn't an option. Even though I most of the time choose to just go ahead and watch it at home, every once in a while it's just kind of nice to get out and do that, have that experience. You know, have the greasy popcorn and everything.
Yeah, so I wrote this bullet point down about this topic, and just in one sentence, it sort of sums up the only problem with streaming is that a coworker told me to check out the TV show The Alienist, and it's a TNT show that's exclusive to Netflix, but not available in the U.S. or Canada on Netflix, and it's being streamed on HBO Max. Which you just like, what? It's made by TNT. It's
exclusive to Netflix.
Exclusive to Netflix, but you can only stream it on an HBO Warner Max, right? Yeah, and you can't. It's media locked out of the U.S. and Canada.
That doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
How can it be exclusive to Netflix and not be on Netflix?
Exactly. You're like, the licensing is so convoluted. And I've seen more and more YouTubers that are doing product placements in their YouTube, videos. And the biggest thing I always see these days is YouTubers promoting VPN services. And they say for your privacy or to get around content blocks, right?
Yeah.
That is a huge thing. It's just like, okay, I can't watch this, so let me stream through Europe, right?
That should be a clue to the entertainment industry.
You know,
when other industries have sprung up specifically to bypass your DRM.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I can't add on to that. That's it. That's the problem. You're right. And at some point, somebody's, we don't have a Steve Jobs right now that would cut through the crap and go, nobody wants to do this. I'm just going to do it this way.
Oh, yeah.
We don't have somebody like that. I mean, Elon Musk maybe, but he doesn't care about this, I don't think. He's too busy sending people, sending Teslas into space. Anyway, we are about to the Ask Us Anything section. And we do have a couple Ask Us Anythings that were asked of us a long time ago.
We'll keep this brief because we're at an hour 50.
Keep it brief. I think these will be brief. Mr. Roger Edwards at Moderate Peril asks, thin glass or tankard? Choose wisely and don't let Michael Caine influence your choice. I thought about trying to do it in Roger's accent, but I don't think that's a good idea.
You would just cock it up somehow.
Yeah. Sod off, will you? I can answer this. Neither for me. I drink my Angry Orchard straight from the bottle. Is there anything more American than cider, though? I mean, come on.
I'll concede that point. So I used to be a tankard guy. If I'm drinking a pint of like Harps, you gotta have the thin glass, right? But the Oktoberfest loving guy in me is a fan of the Stein, which I think is much bigger than a tankard, right? So I'm a Stein guy.
I don't know. I use a bottle.
But if it's thin glass or a tanker, I think I'd go with the thin glass, right? But I'd rather have a gigantic Stein of Fest beer, right?
So I've been meaning to ask you this a long time. Do you have German in you? Are you part German? Because
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say you
Yeah.
do the Oktoberfest thing.
I'm a member of the local one of the there's, Cincinnati has 5 German societies.
Okay.
I think they would all get together, but they don't. I'm a member of one of the biggest one in town, the Germania Society. So
Okay.
when we do Oktoberfest, we Oktoberfest hard.
I've seen some of the things that you cook are very German. So
and it's not a like a tourist kind of an Oktoberfest, right? It's severely authentic Oktoberfesting, right?
Yeah.
So the least visited tent at our Oktoberfest is the Miller Lite booth. Like we put that there for the tourist. So, yeah. So like yeah, I have a sliver of German in me, which was enough to get into the German society. So.
Interesting. The rumor is I do have some as well, but we haven't been able to trace back that far to actually prove that. I don't think. I mean,
you trace everything back to everything.
I suppose we could do. I'd have to go back. I think my brother did do Ancestry.com or one of those at one time, and I could probably find it. But I don't know how specific those get. I don't know if it just says like Western Europe or if it actually pinpoints a more specific location.
Our our German society allows you to not be German as long as you just embrace the German culture.
Yeah.
Right. But they allow you to sort of show your ancestry if you want. But there is another group of a German society, and it's in the same township too. Like my German society is like a couple miles away, and a couple miles in the other direction is the other German society. And those guys are the hardcore Germans. Like you have to be German and you have to speak German. You know what I mean? to even attend to their stuff.
Wow. I imagine it probably took a while for those things to come back after the 40s. Don't you think?
Yeah.
They were probably stamped out for a while there.
Yeah. Cincinnati is always, if you get into Cincinnati history, there is some hilarious history behind like riots where like the German people rose up because they were being like squashed down. This was like in the 1900s, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, the great German riot of Cincinnati, you know, it's like where like they tried to like put a tax on beer. The Germans were like, no.
You're specifically targeting us.
Yeah.
If you
and
tax
Cincinnati's
beer.
Not huge, but at one point, I think back in the day, right before Prohibition started, some historical tour we went on downtown, which was so fascinating. They said that there was like 1,000 bars in this like 2-mile stretch of Cincinnati. There was 1,000 taverns. Like there was almost a 1-to-1 ratio of like taverns to houses. Yeah. Cincinnati was a hard German brewing town, and then Prohibition just dried it all up. So.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to move on. We're going to save the next question for the show.
Sorry, we gushed too long about the tankards.
Yeah, we did. That was a very important topic, though.
Quick answer, thin glass.
We are looking for other Ask Me Anything questions if you're interested in anything that DJ and I think. Even if you're not, go ahead and ask us. As far as other feedback, you can send it to braxwolf@gmail.com and I'll read it on the podcast. We don't have any this time. We do have people listening. I know we do. You can go ahead and send us questions. You can send us feedback. It's okay. We don't mind. We really
we'll answer your question. Hopefully before a vaccine is found.
We will answer your question. I promise that I will either answer your question or apologize about not answering it. This is a reminder that Beyond Boss Fights is on iTunes, Spotify, and Player FM, and would appreciate your ratings and reviews. As far as our contact information, DJ can be found at DJ Pimp Daddy. His email is it's just DJ Pimp Daddy at gmail.com. Just how it sounds. And he streams occasionally. I know he likes to stream Fallout at twitch.tv/DJPimpDaddy.
I'm converting it to a Zamboni channel now.
Oh, great. I'm so looking forward to that. As for me, my Twitter is Braxwolf. That's BRAXWOLF. You can email me at braxwolf@gmail.com. Same spelling. My blog is located at braxwolf.wordpress.com. And so are these podcasts. So if you'd like to go back and listen to any of the old stuff, it's back there as well. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We will hopefully be back before too long with more rantings, ravings, and entertainment.
See ya.
9 Farline.